what was that inflection point?
And the first inflection point was we started Simpl in Bombay. We had a Dabbawala subscription coming to our office. There was one day the Dabbawala came. We sat down and I asked him, how many people don't pay you? And he said, sir, सब लोग भी देते हैं. मैंने कहा, नहीं, कोई तो नहीं देता होगा. Who like some people don't. He's like, हाँ एक दो होगा, लेकिन नहीं दोगे तो पेट में दर्द होगा. This guy is like almost like not able to understand my question. And I was like, wow. That's a secret. And the secret is fundamentally people are good. If you build the right incentives and disincentives, then people will behave.
Let's talk about your first big merchant that you were able to close.
So our deck was just 3 pages. And on the front page of the deck was Snoop Dogg's picture. On the right side there was a line, your customers think they're rock stars. And the next slide was, do you treat them like one? And our first merchant ended up being Pasos. So you will see a Simpl button on about 20,000 merchants now. So it's a pretty big network.
What advice would you give to folks who are thinking about moving back?
I always think about these moves as reversible. India is one of the best positioned countries in the world in terms of macro. Definitely much more lucrative and exciting than when I moved.
We had Nitya Sharma on the pod. Nitya is the co-founder and CEO of Simpl, a fast-growing fintech company in India that specializes in the buy now, pay later sector. We discussed Nitya's early life, why did he move back to India, founding story of Simpl, and the journey of Simpl till now, India's fintech revolution, why India is the land of opportunities, and much more. Now I bring you Nitya.
Nitya, so good to have you on the pod.
Shiv, thanks for having me.
A good starting point, Nitya, can be when we're really, a byproduct of our environment. What kind of shaped you the most while growing up?
I think while growing up, what shaped me most was that in the early years of my school, I grew up in Mathura, UP, like a small town near Delhi. And the school I went to was not a classic Montessori, but it was a Montessori, which means there was a lot of freedom in how you study or not, right? So my first 5-10 years of school was about exploring things I was interested in without the dogma of course, curriculum, and grades.
Mm-hmm.
My dad worked in merchant navy. So me, my brother, and my mom used to travel with him a lot. So in my early days, I traveled the world a lot, studied in a very unstructured way, which makes me a very bad student. I can't sit in a class like this and attend a lecture because I lose focus in the first 10 minutes, but also that gave me the opportunity to explore things that most people are not able to explore when they go to a school that is all about studying these things in certain ways and try to pass an exam. Mm-hmm. So I think those were very formative times for me and quite different from my peers at that time, in life I led.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And you remember, any experiences or even people that kind of shaped your worldview very early on?
Few things that really shaped my worldview was, one was my father, my dad. Obviously he was building his career in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and he chose from a small town in Mathura to go work in merchant navy, and became very successful, and took up this job which is about wandering the world on a ship, and always encouraged me, my brother, our family, my mom also encouraged us just to explore things. So that was a very important, just like environment that helped me be the person I am. Honestly, the other person who I always admired, you're a tennis player, and I've never met him, but always admired and learned a lot about is Boris Becker. When I was 10 years old, I remember there was a time we went to Germany with my dad, and the only thing I wanted to do was go see where Boris Becker lives. Right? And some taxi guy took us there. Who knows? I think he lives in Hamburg. I don't know if he just showed me his house. This is where Boris Becker is. Just like in Juhu, I'm sure people show Amitabh Bachchan's house and Salman Khan's house. I don't know whether he lives there or not there, but I always thought Boris Becker is a very interesting character, very young, extremely talented. He's one of those, he's not the Nadals of the world. He's from a talent point of view, it seems like he may not be the most disciplined person, but extremely talented and how he played on the court and off the court was phenomenal, and I very much admired him.
Yeah. His serve was unbelievably good.
At those times,
Yeah.
and serve and volley, the game. He was like a little bit of a different character,
Yeah.
right? I really like. I for some reason are able to draw more towards folks who kind of like break out of the crowd, right? And like Stefan Edberg at the time, and like Jimmy Connors, I guess they were more gentlemanly. Boris Becker was almost like a maverick rule breaker. Would come in, disrupt the game, played serve and volley in a way where Edberg would just be rattled a little bit. Right? So that was interesting.
Yeah, and I think there was some story that he would go out in the forest and really take the hammer and kind of like practice his serve.
Yeah.
And that's how it got really good.
Yes, it was like, and like I remember during some of these Edberg games, because my brother was an Edberg sort of fan. Like, so we used to have these Wimbledon finals where my brother is like fighting with each other, but I was always worried about his second serves because he would not slow down.
Yeah. And Nitya, so I think you got your undergrad at Punjab Engineering College, and spent some time in my hometown, Chandigarh, and you decided to move to the US. Maybe walk us through the journey, of you moving to US, your time in the US, your experiences, and what all values and skills you picked up in the US.
Yeah. Let me quickly walk through why I even went to the US, because that was not my plan. So I went to college in Punjab Engineering College. And I wanted to study mechanical engineering. And I think it was driven by two things, because this is like 98, right? When internet was becoming big, and a lot of my friends were wanting to be in computer science or electronics. And the reason I wanted to be in mechanical engineering was through high school, I was very good in physics, and I loved physics. And I thought I want to be something in robotics, or that's what I thought I'll do. And then my father was much mechanical engineering, so that sort of played an influence. But when I went to college, I did an internship in a car manufacturing company nearby. I'll not name the company because it's a great company, but I just did not enjoy it at all. It was my worst 3 months, to the point that I just didn't even show up. And that's when, in the second year, because in India, obviously, as in college, you can't change your major, right? You enter something and you have to finish it off. And I was like, shit, this is not something I want to do. And I was just like hanging out and like hardly studying. And I ended up reading a book called Liar's Poker. I don't know if you've read it. If you haven't, it's a phenomenal, it was Michael Lewis's first book. And it's about old school Wall Street, like his starting point on Wall Street. And I read the book, it was a phenomenal book, and I was like, wow, this is a great job, whatever he did, and what is this? And like, oh, there's something on Wall Street. I was like, okay, I want to go to Wall Street. And so after mechanical engineering, I went to University of Michigan to study financial mathematics. And then I worked on Wall Street for about 8-10 years. First at Bear Stearns, then at Goldman Sachs, then at a hedge fund, trading structured credit. It was a great experience living and working in New York City. In the midst of Wall Street. Around that time was a great financial crisis. So it was just a great experience overall.
Got it. Look, you got what you wanted. You wanted to be on the Wall Street. Seems like you were having a great career. So what really triggered you or made you move back to India and start a company?
So my last job was at a hedge fund, which was a startup hedge fund. So I was in the startup team. Small team, 10 people, and I loved it. So prior to that, I was at Goldman Sachs, left Goldman Sachs to start this hedge fund. And after that, I was thinking of starting my own hedge fund. I thought I'm good at what I did. I did not want to go and work in a very large institution. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, so I thought I'll start a hedge fund. And I was thinking about what exactly would my strategy be. And I wanted to take some time off. So I was just like taking some time off and thinking through my next step. And during that time, I was just like traveling the world. And I was spending some time in India because in the previous 10 years or so, I'd hardly spent time in India with my parents. So I was spending time in Delhi. And one thing led to another. I got rejected for a credit card. And that's when I kind of realized, hey, this thing that we call the credit card, that I use it, I thought everybody has in the world. Most people in India just doesn't have. Most people in the world doesn't have it or use one. It's a uniquely American North American, British, and Australian phenomena. And everything we use in the credit card world was built in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Right. And so I kind of like had this aha moment, like maybe India is a place where you can reimagine the whole thing. And that's sort of like what's very interesting. And I was reluctant to start, but eventually started.
Yeah. Got it. And that's back in what year?
2014.
2014.
Yeah.
So Simpl got founded in 2014. What was the first, thesis or idea like? How has it evolved? Let's talk about the early days, because in 2014, as you said, it was so hard to get a credit card given your background, what you've done, professionally. And just give us, a sense of what was 2014 like?
Yeah, the starting thesis was, so when I was spending time in India, I noticed two things. One was most people just don't have a credit card. And those of them who have it don't use it like I was used to using, let's say in America, where you would using a credit card for your Starbucks coffee and like the Uber ride or for everything. So notice that. The second thing I noticed was e-commerce was really in its formative years in 2014-15, right? Unlike US, where e-commerce started in 95, right? So Indian e-commerce sort of like really started taking off 20 years after. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that really surprised me about e-commerce was that while we have wallets and UPI was just getting started and so on, 60 to 70% people would still use cash on delivery to buy things online, right? And in India, I think we take it for granted, like, of course, makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's surprising that you can actually do an e-commerce business when you bring something to someone's house and they pay you with cash or choose not to pay you also. Mm-hmm. And of course, in the US, it's not even conceivable.
Yeah.
Right? So to me, it was very shocking. Why does it work? Mm-hmm. Why do people use it? And how can even operations work like that?
Yeah.
And so as I thought more about it, and it's clearly not because people don't have bank accounts or UPI or payments is there. And if anything, it's more than anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. So my thesis was the biggest driver of cash on delivery is trust.
Yeah.
Right? And again, when I thought about how I use my credit card, it was about something that makes my life easy. It's not about credit for purchases that I don't have money for. It's more like I can bundle everything into one bill, pay it off at the end of the month, get some loyalty rewards in the process, and if something goes wrong, I can do a chargeback. Mm-hmm. Right? So I kind of like felt the opportunity to reimagine the credit card, but reimagine it not like a better version of a credit card, but reimagine it as a very commerce-first, new age instrument that is an exceptional user experience. And before I grew up in Delhi, I grew up in a small town in Mathura. And what is very common in small towns in India and also big towns is we all run a khata, like a tab or an account with stores that we know we have a relationship with, right? It could be kirana store, it could be newspaper wala, it could be a milkman or whoever. And so I kind of like felt, here is a product called the khata, which has been around in human beings' life for thousands of years, not only just in India, but around the world.
Yeah.
And we still use it.
Yeah.
And so whenever there is something and of course there is no technology, right? It's a piece of pen and a piece of paper and piece of pen, and somebody keeps a record of it, and we just use it. And whenever something has been around for thousands of years, it's fair to assume something like that would be around for the next 1,000 years. It's called the Lindy effect. And so I kind of like, and when you stumble into that insight, you have to ask the fundamental question: why does it even exist, right? In today's world, where people have cards and UPI and cash and all that, why do people still use khata? And so, that was an interesting question to me. And when I asked that question, two insights jumped out, which basically founded the entire strategy, first principle, and mission of the company. And we have never diverted from there since then, because to me, it's like the fundamental truths. And those are: khata is a way for any retailer, big or small, to build a relationship of trust with their customer, right? It's them and their customer, not someone else's customer, like a Visa's customer or some wallet's customer or Google's customer or Amazon's customer. It's like, I'm a store, I have a customer, I have a bilateral relationship, and that is of trust, right? And for a consumer, it's the best user experience, right? One of the things we say at Simpl is that the best payment experience is no experience, right? No one ever woke up in the morning to go to Starbucks to make a payment, or go to Amazon to make a payment, or anywhere to make a payment. Payments are best done when they are invisible. And here is a khata that solves these two fundamental problems of commerce. For a retailer, it gives a powerful weapon to build a relationship of trust. And for a consumer, it gives you the best user experience you can imagine. So, yeah, my thing was, if you were to take the concept of the khata and reimagine for internet, you can basically replace the credit card itself, right? And so I thought, these fundamental values of trust between customers and merchants and the customer wanting a invisible experience is just not something an Indian consumer or an Indian merchant would want. This should be wanted by billions of people around the world and every merchant in the world. So I thought India is a great place to start something like a khata on the internet.
Khata on the internet, yeah.
But a khata that is not merchant by merchant. It's almost like from a customer point of view, I can pay one bill across all the khatas. So that's what we built.
Yeah.
And that's what we started, honestly, and we are still doing that.
Yeah.
It's a non-trivial problem
Yeah.
to solve. So if you can imagine, in today's world, this is done by many companies in the middle, doing various things, anywhere from fraud prevention to processing of payments or issuing a credit card or acquiring a merchant and so on. We have built a vertically integrated platform that just delivers a much superior user experience to the consumer and a much better value to the retailers at a cheaper cost. And the fundamental focus is, how do you deliver a user experience via the merchant to the consumer that is easy and safe?
Gotcha. This morning I took a Blue Smart cab, and I could see it was powered by Simpl.
Yeah.
Yesterday I ordered some delicious food from Zomato.
Yeah.
And I noticed that it's powered by Simpl.
Yeah.
And I knew that I'm hosting Nitya, the founder of Simpl, tomorrow, so I could see Simpl everywhere. But of course, it's not easy. That's not even should be a word there, that it's easy to get there. Let's kind of talk about right from the beginning, early days. Let's talk about your first big merchant that you were able to close, and then also what was that inflection point, Nitya, while you were building Simpl, that kind of gave you a lot of confidence. And in other words, some could say product market fit, or some could say we just found it, now we are at it. But in a simple language, let's break it down in simple. Simple is the word. The journey as of now.
Yeah. I think any company that does is around and then does well for many years have many inflection points. So like it's almost like I always think about Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, and so on, and all these acts are very different. So I remember the first was it's one of these products that you can't just launch. So it's not like an app that you can just launch. It's a very complex product that first it's a network. So you have to get merchants and you get consumers, and no one wants to be the first. Right? So it's a classic network problem, right? No one wants to have the first fax machine or a telephone or a Facebook account or Simpl. And so we had to solve this network problem. And then second problem that was a very important problem, which was impossible to solve till we have the network, is how do you manage fraud here, right? Khata on the internet makes sense, but okay, well, so many people will just defraud you. And I was trying to intellectually answer that question, just like, how can you do it? And I was talking to smart people and credit card world and like all of that. And everybody said, it's just not possible. And then everybody's like, Nitya, in India, it will not work, right? Because Indians don't, one of the big mistakes I think sometimes in India we make as founders of companies or even product managers, have a very India first view, like Indians do this and Indians like, and don't ask the fundamental question of what is the driver of some human value, right? So everybody said, Indians will not pay, Indians don't do this, and so on. And so I was very worried, obviously, like, hey, I'm sort of moving back from US, doing this, and that's a very important point of failure. And I knew it, and I said, okay, well, I think there is a way to solve this problem because there is more data than ever in the world, there's mobile, and so you can solve this, but I did not know, right? So, but I was really worried about it, right? Hey, we'll raise some money, hire so many people, build a business. And I knew that at some small scale, we'll probably be able to block and tackle and solve this problem, but can this be solved in a bigger scale, right? And that only we'll know when the scale is there. And so first inflection point was, there were ups and downs, right? When we were talking to people, like some people will say, Nitya, you don't understand. You just move back to India. You're more American than Indian. You don't understand how India works. So, no one will pay. And so, yeah, sometimes you would have these moments of doubts. And I remember there was one time we used to live in, we started Simpl in Bombay, because when I moved from New York, I moved to Bombay first. And one of the days, we had the dabba. In Bombay, we have these dabba walas, right? They distribute lunch. And we had a dabba wala subscription coming to our office. And we had some people in the office. We had a small team, maybe 10 people. And there was one day, the dabba wala came and said, hey, you have a bill, right? So one of the teammates said, like, hey, Nitya, we have to pay, you have cash, we have to pay the guy. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then I realized, I was like, oh, I want to talk to him. So I went out and we sat down and asked him, it's like, because it's a khata, right? I mean, he would give us food for thousands of rupees for the whole month, and I'm supposed to pay him. And I was like, how many people don't pay you, right? And this is a young kid, right? Maybe 16, 17-year-old kid, and like probably a family business delivering dabba in Juhu. And he said, everybody pays. Sir, सब लोग भी देते हैं पैसे. मैंने कहा, नहीं, कोई तो नहीं देता होगा. Like some people don't. Like, हाँ एक तो होगा, लेकिन नहीं दोगे तो पेट में दर्द होगा ना. Like, here I am, and like so many smart people. I'm meeting in BKC and like these good buildings, and they are like just 100% sure no one will pay. And this guy is like almost like not able to understand my question. And I was like, wow. Yeah. Like, and Peter Thiel says this, like, there is always in great companies, there is a secret that no one knows, that if you know and it turns out to be true, is the fundamental reason why you build a company. And so I like, that's a secret. And the secret is, fundamentally, people are good. There are fraudsters who want to fraud you, but if you could keep them out using machine learning, AI and stuff, then fundamentally, if you build the right incentives and disincentives, then people will behave, right? So anyways, that was a very important inflection point, because before that, I was actually very underconfident about.
You were doubting.
Doubting that how many people will not pay. And people were quoting numbers at 20%, 30%, 50%, right? So I was like, at 50%, it doesn't work. So anyways, we built Simpl. That was my first, like, I was like, yes, this will work, right? Because my fundamental thing was, most people can be trusted. And so our one insight was, most people can be trusted. There are some people who, given the opportunity, cannot be trusted. And all of the experiences e-commerce are built for them, to keep them out. So all the experience that we all have are experiences to keep the bad people out. Right? So what I was excited was, how do you flip the table? How do you build a trust-first e-commerce experience? Right? Which is one click, buy now, just pay after later, like a khata and so on. And easy refunds, one-click refunds and buyer protection and so on. So yeah, built. One of the hard things here is and in 2015 is when we started building, in 2016 is when we launched. One of the things about Indian e-commerce then was, there were no small e-commerce companies. There were only big e-commerce companies. There was Amazon and Flipkart and all of that. There was no D2C brands and so on. And so we had to convince one of these big people to work with a small company who has this crazy idea of a khata on the internet. Everybody understood that this could be interesting, but why would you be the first person to pilot something like this? And keep in mind, at that time, wallets were the rage, right? Everybody had already assumed that in China, there would be all these wallets in India and all that, and like khata and stuff seemed not interesting. And yeah, we had a very tough time finding our first merchant. And our first merchant ended up being Fasos. Jaideep at Fasos, liked what we were doing. And I remember by that time we had met so many people, and everybody said it's an interesting idea, but never really worked with us. And it had already been maybe 8 to 9 months. So we were like 9 months into the thing, built technology and all that. And like no merchant wanted to work with us. And again, we were like, oh shit, this is not going to work out, because we underestimated the network problem. And I remember by that time, it was almost like, if Fasos doesn't work out, we have to figure it out something else. Like this whole khata and the internet doesn't work out. And I remember we were pitching everything, right? We were pitching all the conversion metrics and all that. We had no metrics, obviously, but we were like, hey, this will happen and conversion will increase. It'll be one click and people will love it. And there is a network which did not even exist. We were pitching all the jargons. And then I kind of like had to change the pitch, right? Because I was like, this is like, and Jaideep could make the decision. So our deck was just 3 pages or 4 pages. And on the front page of the deck was Snoop Dogg's picture. And so there was Snoop Dogg. And on the right side, there was a line. Your customers think they're rock stars, ? And the next slide was, do you treat treat them like one. And then I showed them their checkout experience, which was, you'd buy a roll or something, and then there is all these things and 5 options and all these cashbacks and just like complete shit show and like OTP and failures and all of that, and showed what Simpl could be. And because we didn't even have a product, it was just like a prototype. It was like, it's like a super highway for your top 20% customers who create 80% of your GMV. These are the people who are buying from a roll from you every day, every second day, or twice a day, and let them just like buy on a khata, right? And the moment I said, like, they just loved it. And like, we were just like a small company, and like Passos at that time was the biggest food company in India. And I mean, Jaideep was like, let's go. Let's launch next week. And we were like, holy shit, we are not ready, right? Because we thought that we launch with some small merchant, iron out all the kinks. But yeah, we launched, and that was the second inflection point, and then many inflection points since then.
Yeah. So now, fast forward to today, Nitya, where are we today? What all products you have within Simpl, and maybe we can just take an example of, let's say, how you're helping Zomato or you're helping Blue Smart. That way, audience can understand it better. And what is the magical outcome that you hold and your team holds for Simpl in the, let's say, next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah. So just to give you, basically, again, it's a khata on the internet, right? So you will see a Simpl button on about 20,000 merchants now. So it's a pretty big network. Like you said, on Zomato or Swiggy or Myntra or Zepto or Blinkit or Instamart or Jio or Tata, a lot of D2C brands and so on. What happens with Simpl is you see the button, press a button, it's one click checkout. Right? Whatever you bought is added to a bill. Right? So it's a khata that is provided to you by the merchant, but it's a consolidated khata. You see a consolidated bill. And then what happens is every 15 days a bill is created for all of the purchases you make, which you then pay with UPI or debit card. If in the middle or anywhere in that time, if there's a problem, for example, you don't get a delivery or something wrong was delivered, etc., you can dispute it. In which case, we move it off your bill, and you pay what you basically consume, right? So it's perfect khata, right? It delivers this user experience, which is about ease and safety, right? As you know, most people use cash on delivery so that they can pay after delivery. So Simpl is basically that, right? And so how that translates to value for retailer is, it increases conversions, it increases retention of users, and because it increases retention, the users buy more frequently, and so increases the spend. So what Simpl does is for most of our retailers, increases the GMV of consumer cohorts by almost 70%. Right? And the product works beautifully in use cases where transactions are not large in amount, but very frequent in nature. So anywhere from lifestyle stuff to fashion to cosmetics to food to grocery to movie tickets to online subscriptions and micropayments, that's where things work really well. It's like small transactions people do, put it in a khata, just pay off. And just adds value to both merchants and customers, and customers pay with UPI, right? So it's like, think about this as you add a khata on top of your UPI layer, and you pay off that khata with UPI every 15 days, as opposed to do a UPI transaction every time you do a transaction.
Got it. And where do you see it going in the future? How would Simpl look like in the, let's say, in the future, in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, like the stated vision of the company is to build a merchant first and helping merchants to be consumer centric network. Buying network is what we call. So it's like a new version of Visa. We want to be across the internet. We want to be across the world. And then eventually we want to be offline as well, right? So the customers can get the same experience and merchants can give the khata so that they're able to build a relationship of trust with their customer. One of the things that we ask the question is, like, when we dig into first principle, and like we always are ready to change our mind if we think we are wrong, but you have to ask this question, like Jeff Bezos style, will it ever change, right? So we ask the question, will merchants not want to build a relationship of trust with their customer? The answer is not.
Good way to put it,
Is it that merchants in US or in Europe or Russia or Nigeria not want to build that relationship? Of course they want to, right? So that will never change. And will that change in the next 1,000 years? So they've been wanting to build a relationship and they use a khata for thousands of years. They're doing it now. They're doing it around the world. Will they continue to do it in the next 1,000 years? The answer is probably yes. Right? And on the consumer side, will consumers want to experience payments? Right? The answer is no. The best experience is no experience. And so, yeah, we just want to keep on doing the thing. Like we are one of those companies. We are extremely focused. It's a very complex problem. The technology, the infrastructure, the engineering behind it, the operations behind it is non-trivial. So yeah, we've focused on building it. We want to be as horizontal as possible, as global as possible, just like letting anyone sell on the internet, where they can deliver the user experience to the customer at par with the largest platforms in the world.
Yeah. And you've been building Simpl for almost 9 or 10 years, and goes without saying, there were a lot of ups and downs. Of course, you came back. There were doubts, which you just discussed, and I'm glad that you met Dabbawala. And gave you a lot of confidence. And Nitya, maybe we can talk about few, let's say, instances or experiences or situations where, man, it was hard. It was hard for you to kind of like stay at it. You might have also thought, maybe this thing is not going to work out anymore, but you stayed at it. And how were you able to kind of like overcome, in those times?
Yeah. I think every company is extremely hard to build. It's extremely hard to build something that few people use. Then it's extremely hard to build a company or a product where millions of people use and different type of customers, from consumers to businesses use, and then have a business model that can, actually be a business as opposed to just a good product. And every company goes through its own ups and downs. And I think what is the difference between companies and people and teams who eventually make it is they're survivors. And I never appreciated it till I and our teams and all of us have gone through all ups and downs. Is the greatest entrepreneurs in the world, whether it's Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. Steve Jobs said once, surviving is winning, right? And that's so true. And it's oftentimes when the things are really hard, all you need to do is hang in there. But to hang in there, you need to have purpose, right? Because it's obviously hard, right? Why should you hang in, right? Because there are options. And that comes from a deep conviction in something, right? And for some reason, it's true for me and for our team, is we are totally fine that if we believe in something, and most people don't, and we are okay with it, right? We do ask hard questions to ourselves. Are we delusional, or is this true or not? Or are we, being intellectually honest about things? But as long as we are feeling that, yeah, this is a fundamental truth, I actually get more excited and energized, and therefore my sort of like conviction to sort of hang in there or survive or whatever goes higher when other people don't see it yet. Because that's the reason why you'll be successful. Because if everybody knows this, and everybody then it's a hyper competition and no one wants to, it's hardly, you can't. So you have to be contrarian and you have to be right. And for both, you need a very strong mindset and ability to separate the signal from the noise, and just keep at it and solving the problem, and keep the North Star around are you delivering value to the customer at a price point where it makes business sense. Right? So that's sort of how we think about it. And as long as that is working, we feel like we are on the right path. And sometimes the path will be easy or hard, and it's never easy, by the way. But it's just like a difference of harder. And the second thing I think in these journeys, I think most people probably find out is every challenge. Like when I started Simpl, I always obviously things always are hard, and you don't know whether you'll solve the fraud problem, or you don't know whether your first merchant will come, or people will like you or not. And you think that's the biggest problem you have, and once you solve this problem, you're off to the races. And what I've learned over time is, and that's also very exciting once you shift the mindset, is every challenge and problem, when you overcome, makes you better prepared for the next challenge and problem, which is going to be greater and more complex than the other one. previous one, right? And that's true. And that's true for every entrepreneur, including the entrepreneurs who we look up to, like whether it's Elon Musk or Zuckerberg or whatever, right? They have challenges, and they're having to navigate the companies in this new world of AI, and and that's not easy. But every challenge they've had in the past has set them, prepared to take off this next challenge. And that's what once you have that relationship with challenge, which is, hey, it's a challenge, which is not a negative thing. It's like, oh, it's a problem, now I have to solve it, and I get to the next, level of the video game. It's exciting because you're now a problem solver.
Yeah. And Nitya, you've been, you've seen the evolution and the growth of the fintech industry in India, and you probably have a very deep insight on how it's evolving, what's kind of like the future like sort of like help us understand how things have changed since 2014. Where are we today, and what kind of like challenges and opportunities that you see in the fintech industry in India?
Yeah. So I think for first thing to understand in India is one of the fundamental things that have happened in the last 10 years from 14 to now, and maybe even prior to that, is we have infrastructure that does not exist in most parts of the world, including the most developed financial services worlds in the world. Right? For example, almost everybody in India now have a bank account, right? A lot of those people probably don't have clean water to drink or even toilets, but they have a bank account and a way to make a payment through UPI, right? This does not exist in the world, I think so, right? And definitely does not exist in even the most developed countries in the world like US. They're now building it, but it doesn't exist, right? So, I mean, this happened in the last, I think, 10 years, right? Second is what we call the India stack, right? Identity, Aadhaar, like digitally verifiable, biometric-based identity of every single person in the country. Doesn't exist in the world. Now we have other stuff that is, I guess, not as prominent or maybe baked out, but work in progress. There's all the aggregator frameworks, AA and so on, right? So now if you think about it, you have identity, your bank account, you have a way to move money, and then you have a way to collect all the data through APIs. And all of this is public infrastructure, meaning the largest companies in the world like Google or a startup entrepreneur starting today have same and equal and almost free access to it. What that does is allows anyone to come up with unique user experiences. So these are, the way I think about it, these are infrastructures. And in the US, there are multi-billion-dollar companies that have built these, for example, in the US, there's a company called Plaid. I think it's a $5 to $10 billion company. They do, 10% of it, right? They just connect things. In India, these are all connected. We are already connected, right? And it's connected by the government or the policymakers. It's already there. It's first class, extremely scalable, already adopted to a large extent by billions of people, on its way to be adopted by everyone on a mobile phone, right? And now the question is, how do you stitch these together to deliver unique and very personalized user experiences at cost structures where you can expand to all cohorts of users, this socioeconomic strata of customers or that or whatever, right? And I think that is the exciting part. And I think what we have seen is the fundamental innovation so far, like the infrastructure and so many things going on. But I think we are on the tip of the iceberg on the user experience side, right? I think that just is the next 10 years where entrepreneurs and big companies will use this to deliver these powerful user experiences. So that, to me, like the 10-year sort of this thing in India is, today we have the infrastructure that is delivered to everyone, but not everybody uses it. No one has experienced, let's call it financial services. In 10 years, I think every Indian will be able to experience world-class financial services focused on them and personalized for them at a price point that they can afford.
Yeah, gotcha. Any examples that comes to mind, Nitya? Maybe those things have been done in the US?
Yeah, I mean, example is payments.
Yeah.
Is a good example, right? Like in US, payments are done with Visa and all the cards and stuff. Again, as I said, that was invented 50, 60 years ago. In India, payments are, whether you are a panwala on the street to an Amazon, you use the same stack, right? It's democratic, right? I think others are like other financial services like investing and wealth management, right? I think, the growth in how many people are participating in the stock market, not just because the markets are going up, but also because the access to investing is so easy, it's
the
frictionless,
infrastructure that's
right?
been created.
And great companies are being built around it. This is true for insurance and so on. So I think all of this is coming together. But as I said, the businesses built on top of it, or we are just getting started here.
Yeah. So the infrastructure is out there now. You just need to figure out how to create user experiences around it.
Yeah.
And you can build great business on top of that. And Nitya, look, you've come back and you've built a phenomenal company, Simpl, and through your experience of, again, like you were in the US, you came back, you had your own doubts, uncertainties, and also sometimes there is a reverse cultural shock as well when you come back after spending so much time in the US. What advice would you give to folks who are thinking about moving back and maybe starting a company, and also like how they should view India as an opportunity?
Yeah, as an opportunity to start with, right? When I moved to India, I think, as I said in the beginning of our conversation, it was not super planned. So I was not planning to move to India to start something. I was actually planning to start a hedge fund in New York. So that was my plan. For me, it was more accidental. I was in India. I stumbled into this thing where I have no experience in payments or anything like that. So I started building in it. And yet I moved to India. And one of the things I tell entrepreneurs, like I have a lot of friends also and people who reach out to me asking this question, I always think about these moves as reversible, right? And of course, there are these details about visas and so on, and that's true. But we are more than ever living in a very connected world. So it's not like moving to India is just like this, getting on a rocket to go to Mars and you'll never come back, right? It's not that, right? Despite all the stuff that we all need visas to travel around. So if anybody feels strongly about it, I don't think that they should feel like this is something, the end of, like this is one thing I will do, I'll never be able to reverse it or something. So that's one. I never thought it is irreversible. If it doesn't work out, move on. But that's one. The second is, in 2014-15, more so now, I feel India is one of the best positioned countries in the world in terms of macro, right? Which I was not that convinced about or whatever in 2015 and then up to even 19 or 20. So where are we now? First, again, when I moved, all this infrastructure we talked about was hardly there. We were talking about it, and most of us were writing it off like, oh, in India, this doesn't happen. Like we talk about it all the time, but here we are. We have executed. So we have that. We also have this complete shift in physical infrastructure, right? I remember I live in Bangalore, and there are a few places outside the city. It would take us driving 5 hours to get there. Now it takes us 3 hours. Like just because the highways in the last 5 years have just, from Delhi to Jaipur used to take 6 hours. Now you can be on that highway from Gurgaon in like 2 hours. Boom! It's like Autobahn, right? It's a crazy drive, right? No brakes, right? Yeah. No red light, no nothing, right? And if you ask me in 2015 when I moved to India, like, will that happen? I was like, no chance, right? Because we have waited for so long, it's not happened. But yet it's happening. And then of course, the economy is doing really well, and we are definitely hitting that inflection point of per capita GDP where consumer spend will increase, right? So I think India is, and then of course manufacturing is, the government is building a lot of great policies and structures to encourage manufacturing and job creation and so on. And it's a great place to be. It's like a phenomenal place to be where you are in this perfect storm, where just tides are just like right. Like you don't have, like you just said this, like you don't have a genius to be successful. So it's a great environment. And now, obviously a lot of us end up having great jobs or whatever. And it's not easy to leave a job in a great company or a great country. But yeah, anybody who is wanting to be an entrepreneur, and I think there are opportunities to be an entrepreneur anywhere. You can be an entrepreneur in the US also, but India is a great opportunity and definitely much more lucrative and exciting than when I moved to India.
Yeah. I'll add one more thing. I think you had also mentioned things are so unstructured here. You can create your own path. And yeah, I mean, it's up for grabs.
Yeah, as I say, chaos is a ladder.
Yeah, that's a good one. And Nitya, you know, for the moment, you have unlimited resources. And time, it's hard. Unlimited, you can have unlimited time, but you have unlimited resources, money, attention, not needed anymore for the time being. Uh, uh, we'll put Simpl on the side. What would you work on, if not Simpl?
First of all, I just want to say something because I over time have built a conviction on this.
Yeah.
Unlimited resources is the biggest reason for failure. Because what it does is it kills innovation and resourcefulness. Because if unlimited resources was the single driving force of value creation and stuff, the biggest companies in the world should be the most innovative.
Yeah.
And we all know they're not, and that's why startups even exist, right? And the reason startups exist is because they're resource constrained. And resource constraint makes you resourceful, innovative, because you have to innovate to survive. Only you can innovate to that extent, 10x, right? Not just like some small thing, because survival depends on it. So, at Simpl, we take it very seriously. And as a company, being resource constrained, and whether we have resources or not, but like operating like one, is super important to create a culture of innovation, invention, and value creation. So that's one. But what is the main question?
Yeah. So basically, it was you have enough money.
What will I do? Yeah.
What will you do?
Honestly, I will probably do the same thing. I'll keep on doing the same thing because again, what we have built at Simpl, again, like while we are building on top of the infrastructure we already have, we all have access to, we built phenomenal infrastructure around integrating with 20s of thousands of merchants and like working with them so deeply and delivering this experience to consumers. And what people see is just like very small tip of the iceberg. The fundamental, infrastructure and the machine learning models and everything is just so high quality, some of the best in the world, that what we will be doing in the next 10 years is going to be quite, I believe, revolutionary. So yeah, I mean, I don't think I'll do something different.
I'm excited for you, and Nitya will move to our final part. Let's get to know you outside of work. What are you most obsessed about outside of work lately?
Yeah, I have a lot of interests. I love to travel. I love sports. I also play sports. I like reading. Love spending time with family.
Yeah.
I love to do things, and I definitely try my best to take out the time to indulge in my hobbies because it's fun.
Yeah. No, I think you are in the evening. You're flying out, and you'll be doing your scuba trip.
Yes.
Well, tell us more about it. How did you get into it? And yeah, is it like one of the few activities that you do?
Yeah. Yes, I'm heading to Borneo Islands, and I'll be scuba diving next week. Very excited about it. Yeah, I think to scuba dive you have to first do it. You have to be certified, right? And I got certified in New York long time back in a swimming pool because that's what you do. And my wife, now wife and then girlfriend, sort of like said like let's go to some Caribbean islands, St. Lucia I think, and we'll scuba dive. And I think she had like we all thought that we like to scuba dive, but we've never done it before. And we had what is called snorkeling. So it was just like interesting thing. So went to some scuba diving thing in New York, got certified, did the open water certification in St. Lucia. And since then, we've scuba dived quite a bit in various parts of the world. And it's a very exciting thing because two things happen. One is the world underwater is so different from this world. It's unbelievably different, right? It's like really being transported to something else. Like also like some of us maybe in 100 years or 50 years or maybe 10 years want to go to Mars just because we want to see the world, right? And that's why we go to other parts of the world, Europe, Asia, Africa, and so on. And that world is so different from everything else. The colors are different. Of course, the people there are different. And they're all friendly. Like you can touch turtles and like these hammerhead sharks, and where I'm going, there'll be seahorses and all that. So it's just like a different world, and it's just like, I think, so different for the brain, right? When I'm there, it's just so awesome. And then, when you scuba dive, typically you are there in with one cylinder for 45 minutes. And in those 45 minutes, the technique of diving is that you regulate your buoyancy with your breath, right? So when you breathe in, you become more buoyant, so you go up, and and you're supposed to be flat, right? As much as flat, because you're going through various things. And so in the training and as you practice the easier ones, you regulate your breathing. So imagine you're in this new world, and you're breathing like a meditation, right? I mean, like, some sort of a thing. And like 45 minutes, oxygen, right? So that combination is like psychedelic in nature, right? So I love it. And this time we are diving in this Borneo Islands. There is a pretty famous and probably one of the best in the world islands called Cyprian Islands, which are also hard. There is a lot of drift, and there are high depth. So we'll be diving for 5 days, three dives a day. So this is hardcore. I was telling my wife we need a vacation. So she was like, it's also my birthday. So she was like telling me we're going for vacation. I was like, okay, where's the vacation? So it'll be fun. So and I love to be outdoors. The other thing I love is skiing, which I also picked up when I was in the US. I first skied, sometime in Lake Tahoe. And beautiful place, and skied and like sort of was good at it. And since then, when I was in the US, I would ski multiple times in the winters, and then as I'm in India, I end up skiing less now, but I want to pick up again. Like every year, I want to go to some mountain and spend a week skiing, because I really feel like coming back to hobbies, and sometimes it also adds to work. Is when you are underwater. These are all obviously adventure sports. You have to focus a lot, right? You can't be distracted. You can't be looking at your phone or thinking about all the things. You are just like focused in the present, right? Same with skiing. You're downhill skiing on Mughals, Black Diamond, whatever, and you're not thinking about anything, and you're focused. And it's just like we all talk about meditation and focus and all that, and that focus brings so much joy, right? It's hard because you're tired in the end of the day, but the most miserable thing in the world is to sit on a couch and not do anything. Right? We all sometimes think that sitting on the beach and like just hanging out, that's also fun. But when you're involved in something you love, it's a little bit dangerous.
You're just into it.
It's a little bit dangerous, so you have to be obviously focused. And then of course the world is very different. If you're on a mountain, it's very different. Obviously, underwater is more different. It's just like a totally different thing, and the brain is fully recharged. You might need a physical vacation. So I'm hoping to sit on a beach for a
I'm
couple of days
excited for you. Sounds a lot of fun. I've never tried it. Hopefully at some point I try it. And Nitya, we know you as an entrepreneur. What do your friends know you for?
I don't know, man. Like, you have to ask my friends. But I hope they know me as a good friend. I like to. I don't have. I'm a very friendly person. I have a lot of relationships. I have some very good friends, and a lot of my very good friends, I have very long-term relationships with them. Some of them I work with. Some of them I've worked with. Some of them have invested in my company. I mean, like, I have some great relationships. I hope it's because I'm a good friend.
Thank you so much for taking out the time to come here and really walking us, through your journey, through Simpl. And it seems like a lot of exciting things are happening at Simpl and in general in the fintech industry and in India. Man, I'm excited for your trip, which is upcoming. And one last one, you look in shape. What's been your relationship with health? Has it evolved, or you've always been somebody who's taken care of the health? There's Whoop there.
Free marketing for Whoop. I mean, look, I've been an athlete for the most part of my life, and so just naturally been involved in something physical. I'm not historically I've been playing stuff like whether it's tennis or squash or soccer or whatever, but I've never been like a gym person. Although in the last few years, I've been more of that person, just because just it's easier. I ended up setting up a small setup in my house apartment, and I work out. And what I feel is that makes me that 1 hour or even 30 minutes makes me so much more productive, focused, high energy for the rest of the 20 odd hours, right?
Yeah.
So I really like to take care of my health. But there is one more important thing. I think over time, I think what is where we are in the world, and this is something I tell people. We are in this very golden age, I feel, where we are in this intersection of those 4 or 5 very important technology revolutions that are going on. Obviously, internet and stuff has happened. We have AI coming in, right, which will impact everything from healthcare to whatever else. We are exploring the space. Climate, we are in this world of zero marginal cost free energy, clean free energy, right? And then we are in this world where whether it's AI and various other this thing, we'll be able to influence our genes and DNA, right? So we are very quickly approaching this point in terms of healthcare where we might be able to reverse age.
Yeah.
And a lot of people claim so, right? And the smartest people in the world. And so there is a very big incentive for all of us, regardless of our ages, to preserve our physical condition, to be very healthy and whatever, till we hit that point.
Yeah.
Right? Where some technology, something could be put in our body, and if there is a problem in some place like liver or heart or kidney or a brain, it'll just go and solve it. That makes the incentive to just like be healthy about eating, working out, and various other ways are important to be healthy. For me to focus on my fitness is being able to live a life that is long, healthy, productive, where I can do a lot of things in life, interact with my family. And so, I've been, and Whoop has helped me a lot. It's a great way to track the most complex thing, because it's very complex. Like, how do I be healthy? Because one of the things, Warren Buffett says this: if everybody, everybody knows how to get a six-pack, right? So if knowing how to get a six-pack would get you a six-pack, everybody would have a six-pack and $1 billion in your bank account, because everybody knows how to make $1 billion also, because all you need to do is compound for 56 years, right? But to do it is very hard. And the reason it's hard is it's easy to sort of have a beer and a pizza right now, because it'll be good, right? And the impact of it on your health, you don't even notice or see it, right? And therefore you know it, but you don't see it. But what this thing does, or anything like this does, is you see the impact right then, and sometimes definitely in the morning. And so that helps you like have a metric where this is the input, this is the output. And so if you want to control your output, you know what the inputs are. And once you know that and you have a dashboard, it's much easier to be healthy and say no to all these things and say yes to the hard things like getting to the gym. And we all know going to the gym is one of those things, or getting on a bike or running or whatever, it's just starting, right? The moment you run, you just like great. Everybody just feel great after 30 minutes. So
Yeah. No, health is probably, it is the most important thing to take care of. Everything else can come together. But thank you so much, Nitya. Really appreciate it for you doing this.
Thank you, Shiv, for having me, and thanks for doing this podcast. It's a 1947 rise. I think a lot of people in India, around the world, who are Indians, either born and brought up in India or have an Indian heritage, are wondering the opportunity in India. And always there is a question like, what is the life there, and what are the opportunities or the lack of it? And a podcast like this, I think, gives a lot of information so that people can make their decisions. So thanks for doing this.
Yeah, and I'm sure they are getting inspired because of folks like yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.